Hello and welcome to episode number 27 of the Hobbies and Happiness podcast, where we talk all about the hobby that makes us happy, tabletop gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Dan.
And I'm Jim, and today we're talking about skill and RNG in card games.
All right, how's it going, everybody? Jim, what's up, man?
It's a good day. It's a good day.
You know, you saying that brings me back to the first couple episodes where, like, you said it every single time.
I thought about that too. As soon as I said it, I'm like, it was a good day.
Man, dude, that feels like so long ago.
Man, that feels like 5 months ago. That's what it feels like.
I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, man, like it has in the grand scheme of things, it has not been a very long time. Yeah. It hasn't been a long time, but I feel like we've come a long way in just that short amount of time, and I'm really happy with where we're headed. So hopefully you are too.
I'd say so.
All right, so what we're talking about today, like Jim mentioned, is skill and RNG. Not just in card games, but like all tabletop games. But honestly, I feel like this conversation and topic mostly comes up within the realm of card games.
Yeah. Even if the board game has cards in it, that is like a random factor. Yeah. It's you're putting random number generator inside of the cards, so yeah, it's pretty much cards.
Yeah. And I know we've touched on this in episodes in the past, particularly episodes that we've specifically been talking about card games. But I really wanted to just kind of delve really heavily into it and just kind of give you our thoughts on the matter. So before we kind of get into it, again, so like Jim mentioned, RNG stands for kind of two different things. You can say random number generator, random number game. Those are the two biggest uses of the term RNG.
Yeah.
And is there any other acronyms that you have heard RNG used for?
Not really.
But yeah, because anything it has to do with just random numbers, right? Yeah. Either a generator or a game.
Yeah. I do know, like, when people are really hoping for something good on their random number generator, they'll be like, I'm praying to RNGesus.
The RNG or the RNG gods.
Yeah, the RNG gods.
I haven't heard that one before, but yeah, that makes sense. So that is what we're talking about, is just the theory of randomness. Now, it's kind of interesting, and I don't know if this is actually if they've had a quote breakthrough on this yet, but I do remember, at least when I was in college, and even before that, actually, no, I think it was in college, because when I was in college, I took a statistics class, and I took a lot of math classes. I almost had a minor in math. I think I just missed one class.
Oh, wow.
That I don't know why I didn't. I don't know why I just didn't do it, because it was just one class. But anyway. In any case, I do remember talking about randomness when it comes to computers. And I think the theory at the time was computers cannot do true randomness. They can't. So that was the theory at the time. Now, I don't know. I'm assuming that's still the case. Like they get close to it. But they're not there, right? They're not there. Now, okay, so let's actually transition here into Mtg Arena, right? Okay, so if you've played Mtg Arena, okay, which is the digital version of Magic the Gathering, it's just the most updated sets, the most current sets, right? How many times, Jim, have you either played or watched someone streaming it or playing it on YouTube complaining about the shuffler being broken?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All the time.
There was even a mono red list that played 13 lands, 13 mountains, and he always opened with 2.
Really?
Always opened with 2. I'm like, that shouldn't be possible.
But here's the thing. Like in talking about randomness, yes, that is possible.
Yeah, it is possible.
Given a certain amount of oh man, what's the population size? There we go.
Yeah.
Given a certain sample size, right? You're going to get that number.
Yeah.
Right? It's just
really low.
Yeah, yes. It should
especially
be.
In a row.
Theoretically, it should be. Now, with any computer game, like especially a card game, you have to then come back to like, how is the game programmed? Like, is there legitimate code in there that will weight your draws toward, I haven't seen, again, in Magic, like I haven't seen a land in like 2 turns. Well, there's this code in there that, since you haven't seen a land, we're gonna favor you to draw a land.
Since a third of your deck is lands, every 3 cards should be a land.
I wouldn't say should.
I'm more so saying for the computer, like the coding aspect of it.
Yeah, because like all that comes down to is, how is it being coded?
Yeah.
Like, how is the code written? Right. And again, because now we come back to computers can't do true randomness. There isn't like a code, an algorithm that does true randomness perfectly. So they have to like simulate randomness.
Yeah. I mean, it's because we're trying to find a pattern in something that shouldn't even have a pattern of it. And it just, it's something humans do.
I want to mention this real quick too. Neither of us are programmers.
No.
Neither of us are computer programmers. So everything that we're saying is based on basically just experience, right? Experience, and then just logic and thinking through these things.
Yeah.
Right. And from our standpoint as basically gamers, like card gamers, really.
I've been around.
Yeah, we have, but at the same time, we also want to make it clear that we don't know what really goes into the coding, right? We're making educated guesses, so we could be wrong, we could be off, and if I am off, I would be very interested to know, like, if I am way off, I would really like to know like what the actual true case is.
Yeah.
So okay, so now in talking about randomness, right? Now we're not applying it, but within the context of a game, right? Particularly a game of skill, or just a competitive game, right? One that you're trying to win. Okay, what you normally your mindset is, okay, I'm going to beat my opponent. I need to find the best line of plays, right, to beat my opponent, right? So eliminating any factors of randomness, right? That's normally what your game plan is, right? How do I go about defeating my opponent in the quickest, most efficient way possible? Normally, right? Now, when you introduce some factor of randomness, okay, you are now adding in another variable that is independent of your skill or your knowledge of the game. Okay. So if over here you have, this is my knowledge and skill of the game. Okay. If that's all we're talking about, if you have 2 players, you've got one player whose skill level's here, and then another player whose skill level is here, probably 10 times out of 10, this player is going to win out.
Yeah.
Okay. If all we're talking about is skill. Okay. Now, however, is that always the case? No.
Not at all.
No. Now, why is that though? Because I feel like in every game there's some topic, or not necessarily a topic, but there's some caveat of randomness that's involved, right? Board games, you've got dice.
Yep.
Right? Dice normally are the random factor.
Or you got the spin tile thing for certain games.
Oh, yeah, like Wheel of Fortune type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, like that's what makes a game interesting, right? Because if it was all just skill, if that's all it was, I feel like the contest wouldn't be particularly entertaining. Like again, within the context of tabletop, games, right? So like in sports, like if we're talking basketball, soccer, that's a little bit of a different thing.
Yeah.
Because there really isn't a whole lot of randomness that's inherent in
air pressure, how our bodies are feeling that specific day. Did you party the previous night?
Well, right, but that's not random.
Yeah.
All of that is not random.
Yeah.
Like maybe the air pressure, like the weather of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, but everything else, like professional athletes.
Well, I mean, what if they weren't planning on going out partying the night before? It just happened, yeah. That's random, right?
Yeah, that's like Dennis Rodman. That was
he partied
the
every night, Dan.
he did. Yeah. Do you remember the there was one of the playoffs where the team, I think they were in Detroit or something, and he flew out to like Chicago or something to party with Carmen Electra.
I thought it was in Vegas.
Was it?
I thought he went to Vegas.
He went to Vegas.
Yeah.
That's right. He went to Vegas.
Yeah.
He went to Vegas to party with Carmen Electra. And like it was in the middle of the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think that was.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
Yeah.
But
Man, what was it? There was the recent, that recent documentary they did.
Yeah, the Last Dance.
There it is, The Last Dance. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to rewatch that again.
Oh, that was great.
So good.
If you haven't seen it, you should definitely go check it out.
Good.
Especially if you're a Bulls fan.
Even if you're not a Bulls fan.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just good.
It is good TV for sure. But like in professional sports, they do their best to eliminate anything that's random, right?
I guess at that point, it's really, since it's not an individual game, the randomness is what's going on with your teammates at that point.
Yeah, and again, and that's why you practice, as the team, right?
Yeah.
So, but even the same thing with individual sports, it's like you do your workout, you practice, and you do your best to get like up here, and there's not a whole lot of random elements that are at play. Now, there's not to say there's none, because there always are a little bit.
How much your body's sweating? Is that messing up your grip on certain things? Who knows?
But like with any professional sport, it's like they try to minimize those things as best they can. Tabletop games is like totally different. And like I feel like if it wasn't different, no, they wouldn't be fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I'd be very curious. Like, I think that's also one reason why watching like pro tours and like professional players play these tabletop games is so exciting, right? Because here's something that I've thought about before. Not everyone can go out and be on an NBA team and play on an NBA team, but you know what everyone could do? They could go out and learn Magic and get really good at Magic. Like this goes to barrier of entry. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I'd say anyone can get good at Magic.
I think so, yeah. I think so.
I guess, if you put enough time into it,
I think if you put enough time into it, like...
Yeah, not anyone.
It's not easy.
Not
like,
anyone can just become 6'8" and
become
pro dominating basketball.
Exactly. Like I could not be. There's no way I could be a professional basketball player. Baseball. No.
Well, I mean, there were actually a lot of smaller basketball players, though.
There were. But Spud Webb could dunk. I could not dunk. Muggsy Bogues, he had some of the sickest handles I've ever seen. Yes, there were some very talented players who were smaller, who were shorter than me.
Yeah, but they were playing for a very long time.
Yes. Yeah.
To get to that point.
Yes. Right. If I put enough work into it, I could get very good at Magic. I don't know. Could I make the Pro Tour? Well, not now, because there is none. But could I get good enough to play in professional tournaments and rank very highly? Maybe. Maybe. I'm not going to say probably, but maybe. Yeah. Like, there's a better chance that I do that than I get on an NBA or an NFL team.
You know what I was just thinking about? The only board game that I can think of that doesn't really have RNG, I mean, I guess aside from what your opponent does, is chess.
Yeah, chess. That's one too, yeah.
Like, that one is so much skill and knowledge based.
That's like all knowledge.
Yeah.
That is like all knowledge. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Chess is a
and that one's entertaining to watch. I guess if you like are into it.
If you're into it and you know the game,
yeah.
it's interesting. Yeah. Like if you have no idea what's going on, you just be like,
yeah. At least with basketball, I'm like, I don't really know what's going on, but I like seeing these dunks, the steals.
Yeah. Like, I've played basketball, I've played soccer, I've played baseball. Like, I know what's the only sport I haven't played like on a team is football. Like, I've played pickup football, like I've played flag football. So like I know what I'm watching. But like if I have no idea what's going on, it's normally like I don't know.
Basketball is like one of the only sports I don't really even know all the rules to, or majority of it.
Oh yeah.
Like hockey, baseball, and football. I'm like more, that's like my go-to ones. Well, I guess not really even soccer either.
Yeah. But, so I didn't know much about hockey, but because I played soccer, I knew I could pick up on some of the hockey rules, like the offsides and all that
stuff.
But hockey's just awesome.
Yeah.
Hockey's fantastic. Right. Well, there's one like ice hockey. There's the ice. That's an element of randomness.
Does your skate itself, the blade break?
Yeah. Right.
That happens. Your stick could break as well.
Especially if you hit somebody over the back with it. That'll break.
I was gonna say, like, checking someone. There's when it's more physical, you got a little bit more randomness.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, for sure. But okay, so taking this back a little bit though, like when you have a game where, well, again, professionals, it's your skill levels here, the level of randomness involved is here, right? Now tabletop gaming, right? We'll keep the skill level the same, right? The level of randomness RNG that's involved can go like really up to here.
Yeah.
It really can.
Yeah.
D&D, when you've got a D20, a 20-sided die, that's 20 different possibilities that can come up when you roll that dice.
Yeah. But then you also have the modifiers of adding your abilities, which at that point you're reducing the amount of randomness.
Exactly.
And trying to make it work for you.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, once you start elevating that level of randomness, is when it does a couple things. Like it makes the game more interesting.
Yeah.
But it also makes it to where it's less about your skill. And so when you talk about a competitive game, then that turns into, I don't know if I want to play this competitive because it doesn't matter how good I get. I could lose to a bad top deck.
I could lose to a bolt off the top.
Yeah.
I've done that a lot to people.
So talking about Magic, right? Or any card game where your resources are strict cards.
Yeah.
Okay. That's one of the problems that Magic has is the resources are lands, right? They are cards within your deck.
Yep.
So if I lose because I am mana screwed or flooded, then that is a big feels bad.
Yeah.
And then the opponent, like I've won plenty of games because my opponent was mana screwed, and I've lost plenty of games because I was mana screwed. That's not a good indicator of who's the better player between me and my opponent. Yeah. Right.
Especially if it's in a tournament rather than just casually playing. Because we know it all happens. Right. But in a tournament, when there's prizing on board, when you have to pay to enter this, it's kind of like, yeah, man, I feel for you. Yeah. You know.
Yeah. So and that's why it's like there are a few different types of conversations that are going to be had. So as a designer, when you're designing particularly a card game, it's like what you want to. I feel like what a designer wants to do is try and minimize that level of randomness that's going to be involved in their game.
Yeah.
Which again, with a card game, that's going to be hard to do because, like any card game, there is elements of randomness, RNG involved because there's a card game. It's a card game. Excuse me.
Yep.
You know, when you have a 60 card deck or a 40 card deck or a 30 card deck, it doesn't matter. Like in Magic, most of the constructed formats are 60 card decks, right? Limited sealed 40 card decks. There are games out there where the decks are 30 cards. So you make that deck smaller, you make it more consistent, you lower the level of randomness, to lower the RNG.
Not to mention, on top of that, the amount of copies that you can have inside the deck as well also cuts down the amount of RNG you have. You know, I'm playing 40 or 4 of the specific card inside of a 60 card deck. What are the odds I get it in the top 7 cards, top 8 cards? Because that's when you really want it.
So when we're talking about RNG and skill in competitive games, like how does that make you feel, Jim? Like, I mean, I mean, I know what my answer is, and I'm pretty sure I know what your answer is. But when you're in a competitive match, and you know what? Let's say not even a competitive match, just any game, right? Magic, right? Where everything is going right for you, nothing is going right for your opponent.
Yeah.
Like, is that fun?
Not at all, honestly, because it's just like, all right, we just need to get this game over with, go into the next one, because this wasn't fun for sure not them and not me, because I'm just like, at that point, it's like I'm not even playing against anyone. If it's just like, oh, I'm putting cards down on the field. I'm playing solitaire. And it's just, oh, let me turn cards sideways. All right, we moved your life down. Oh, you did nothing, then you turn. Okay, go to my turn. Untap, do it again.
So why can Magic get away with it? Like, okay, I say that mostly. I say that as a meme.
A lot of people also say it's a skill to figure out how many lands you're supposed to be playing, so you don't get mana screwed, or when you should mulligan to get rid of the lands and
there's there's actually a lot of good literature out there. Yeah. From people who've played and studied it, which you definitely should check out. Like if you just like any game though, if you want to get good, if you want to be the best, you need to practice and study.
Yeah. There's also, I think out there, a land like formula that tells you, so you pretty much put all the cards that you have inside the deck that you're wanting to play. Yeah. And it will be like, all right, this is how many of this you need to play, and you want to have about this many lands inside the deck. And I mean, we're at that point where it's like there's so much RNG into the game. You kind of need a formula to tell you what the best way to achieve these cards at the earliest stages is.
Well, yeah, and honestly, there's also algorithms and formulas out there that you need to be thinking about when you're playing about, okay, what are the chances that I'm going to draw a lightning bolt off the top here? Yeah. I know I've played one. I've got
100%, Dan.
Like I've got 3 left in the deck. Okay. I've got 15 cards here. Yeah. So that means I've got 35 cards or whatever left in the deck, 45, whatever. I've got that many cards left in the deck. Now let me do some math. I've got 3 cards left in a 45 card deck. That gives me what % chance of drawing this, or I need a land, right? Yeah.
And that's just lightning bolt. Then if you need a bolt effect, then you have lava spike, you have rift bolt, you have skewer the critics, you have multiple cards out there. So rather than just being like, oh, I only have 3 of these cards in the deck. Well, with all the redundancy I now have 16 copies of the card in the deck.
Right. So honestly, like in any game that involves RNG, from the skill perspective, like you need to take that into consideration. Like think about that. Like Jim was saying, bolt effects, direct damage. How many cards do I have that deal certain amount of damage? Like all I need to do, I can win this next turn. My opponent is at 3. I need to deal 3 damage. There's only one way that I can deal this 3 damage. And that's by these certain cards, right?
I have this many cards to out me for this turn.
And then if you don't draw it, okay, how am I going to survive? There's a lot of things.
Am I worried about dying here? Yeah. Is it a race? Is it just I just need to get this bolt effect within the next few turns? Yeah.
Yeah. So from the skill side, it's think about all of those RNG factors when you're building your deck, but also playing. Like when you're in the middle of a game, like you do need to be thinking about those things. Don't just, okay, let me hope I draw, which I mean, it happens, right? That it happens, right? But it's just, it is a thing to be thinking about, right? So, let me go back to the question of how can Magic get away with this?
Man.
And again, like I said, I say that as a joke, right?
It was a pioneer. Like people are addicted to it.
Right. But honestly, like if Magic was made now, that I feel like it would not be popular.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of things wrong with plenty of aspects of the game, mostly the lands.
Yeah.
That it's the resource system.
If we're talking about what the game was like when it first came out, like say the first 4 sets, right? Those came out in this last year. I don't think people would play it.
Wait, comparing, say that again.
So if we're saying the first 4 sets, right?
Just of Magic?
Yeah, of Magic.
Okay.
That came out in this last year. Okay. In comparison to like what else is out now.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
If it waited 30 years.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It's not 30 years. It was 28. So yeah, if it came out in this last year, I don't think it would be as popular at all.
Well, no, and I think
super slow.
Yeah.
I guess people do play 93, 94 Magic.
Yeah, they play
But that's a nostalgia reason.
Yeah,
it's not like, it's the best format.
Yeah.
No, the format was terrible. You just want to play with really, really broken cards.
Right. Yes.
In comparison to what stuff is now.
Or they just want to show off how much money they have on the table.
Exactly. Look at this Black Lotus. Let me just sack that.
Here's six of the Power 9s.
Yeah. Here's like 20 grand.
I'd be curious, like how many people actually play that just to show off their collection.
Oh yeah,
there's gotta be people like maybe there's not, I don't know,
or it's people that just played back then and then their friends got them into it. And be like, oh yeah, here's this awesome format that you have all the cards for.
Yeah, that, and I guarantee that is definitely a thing too.
Yeah,
100%.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm super nostalgic, and so I can imagine if I was into the game back then, 100%, I would totally do that. Yeah,
I have old school Yu-Gi-Oh people that I play games with, and like I've gotten them into GOAT format, which is like the classic version of Yu-Gi-Oh nowadays. So it goes back to 2005, pretty much April 2005 format, and it's all the old cards from then. I know people that stopped playing around that point, so they're just like, well, we have all these cards, so we might as well play it.
Okay.
Yeah. So pretty much the exact same thing.
Yeah. Cool.
People get into 93, 94 Magic just because they had the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and isn't that how a lot of people get into just a game in general?
Yeah.
Like honestly, like it does have to be cool getting into a game that's been around for 30 years and still having everything from the beginning. Like that's just, how many people can say that?
I don't know. I mean, I have one card from the beginning now.
What?
I have a land from Revised.
Yeah. You want to tell everybody about that?
No, I don't. All right, continue. Got a card almost as old as me. It's in better shape than me too.
Wait, wasn't it revised?
Yeah.
Was it revised?
That was the 4th set.
Yeah.
Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, Revised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. You got the revised one. Oh, man, dude. Oh, wow.
Dude, that card's a mint. The card is gorgeous.
I don't know if it's mint, but it is gorgeous.
Yeah. I mean, the only damages I seen 2 nicks on the back. That was it. But
nothing on the edges?
I have to look. It's a little harder to tell because the border's white.
Yeah, that's true.
So I would have to really look again.
That's true.
But yeah, this thing, when I first saw it, I thought it was fake.
Yeah.
I was just like,
I didn't know if you were serious when you asked
No,
that.
I really thought it was fake. because it was just in too good of condition. I'm like, no, there's no way these guys are selling fake cards. I'm like,
no, they were.
There has to be. There can't be any possibility.
Yeah,
but I guess that's just the randomness to it, right? Even outside of the game, it's random.
It's the meta, the game on the. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
The game within the game within the game outside of the game.
Yeah, there we go.
That's it.
There we go. So anyway, yeah, card games is where you're really gonna see the RNG, right?
Oh man, the RNG and deck builders.
Oh yeah, we've talked about that before, and on like that is why I really, really enjoy deck builders. I feel like, you know, like
because we're just so used to getting pooped on. We're like, all right, yeah, this is fine. Our whole lives be like, oh, what did I get? Garbage. Yeah, let's get rid of it.
Yep.
Well, I guess not your whole life. You started like 5 years ago or something.
Yes.
4 years ago.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. Yeah. No, but like, you say that, and that is definitely a big appeal for me. The deck building games and expandable card games.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about my luck, the RNG when I'm opening a booster box.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. Opening booster boxes and
I didn't
packs
even think about that either.
is fun.
Just opening packs.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, I hope I get this. If you're opening packs, you're not getting it.
No, yeah, you're not getting it. You're not getting it. You know what? And that's interesting. So now we talk about a game that the game itself is heavily RNG, but the game outside of the game and getting to play the game is full of RNG too. Is that purposeful?
I don't know.
No, yes. And the reason I say yes is because the publishers want to make as much money as they can. How do they do that? Let's just make it a lottery. I mean, how many people have made a ton of money off of that? I mean, I get it. Like,
I honestly don't know how many people.
No, yeah.
I don't know, Dan.
Like, I get it, and I've bought in quite a bit of booster boxes. It is not the wisest financial thing to do. It's not, but it is fun.
Unless you're going to sit on them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to sit on them.
Or you're going to open them and then just sell everything.
Yeah.
But even then, you still could be losing money.
Yeah. And then we have estimated value of boxes as well, which is another thing based upon RNG, depending on what you pull, if the cards are good, what those prices are. Those will fluctuate over time.
Yeah.
Man.
So as you can tell, like card games, any card games, there's a ton of RNG factors. There's a lot of different RNG factors involved, right? And we're not saying it's good, it's bad. We're just saying it's there.
It's a thing.
It's a thing, right?
Yeah.
So as card game players, we have to number one, understand number one, as opposed to number two.
Yeah.
I don't know. The first thing we got to do is
-A.
The first thing we have to do is understand it, right? And then we have to figure out how to best implement and use the RNG to our advantage, right? Both inside of the game, like while playing it, like we talked about when we're playing the game, understand what's in my deck, what I have left, and then knowing my chances of drawing cards, X cards. And then because that's going to impact my strategy of how I play the next few turns. Do I sit back and wait, be on the defensive, or do I go on the offensive?
Yeah.
There's a lot.
That's where the skill factor comes in.
Well, right.
Recognizing what you have, what resources you have, and what you can do.
And then understanding and using all those RNG factors outside of the game, like how can I get these cards, right?
Oh, I cut my RNG really low when it comes to getting cards. I just buy singles.
Yeah, right.
That's how you. Well, I guess it's not a guarantee that you get your cards.
Yeah. Normally, if you're a card game player, if you're looking for cards, the best thing to do is buy what you need, buy the singles.
Yeah.
Don't go out and buy boxes. Do not go out and buy packs. You buy the singles. And that is why when you see deck lists listed anywhere, they tell you the cost of the deck because it's very easy to find.
Yep.
And then you just go out on any marketplace, that sells cards and then buy the singles.
Yeah, because say the deck you're looking to get is like $500. And you're like, oh, well, I'm going to go buy booster boxes for $500 worth. But it's like, well, but then you also need to get cards from a different set. Yeah. It's not like all the cards you need are from that one booster box.
Right.
And most of the time, unless you're playing standard, but even in standard, it's not from just one set.
Not. It never is.
Yeah, pretty much
unless you build your deck like that.
Yeah. But that's a different thing.
Yes.
Being competitive and being casual with it is completely different.
Yes. Right. So, yeah, I mean, RNG is and always will be a thing, right? And so I think the first step that honestly as a player you have to take is just accepting it. Seriously. So I know I've mentioned this before, but we've played Villainous quite a bit on the channel. And if you saw our last video, we had a 3-person game with Michael. That was a lot of fun. And if you stay tuned, we're going to have another video with him coming soon, probably in the next couple days. So stay tuned for that. But I saw this video where there was somebody was being interviewed and they were talking about Villainous, and somebody brought up, there's a complaint about this game. People are saying it's too random. And then the other guy laughed as if, he was kind of saying, no, it's not. Well, number one, yes, it is. Why is it? It's a card game.
Yeah.
Anytime you have a game that is heavily invested in, but a big mechanic is cards, then there's going to be randomness involved.
Yeah.
100% of the time.
I was going to say, not to mention when you have to fate your opponent and maybe the cards don't help you at all.
Your villain deck is 30 cards. Your villain deck is 30 cards. Your fate deck is 15 cards. Yeah. Okay. That means on any given fate action, you see 2 cards, right? Outside of any other factors involved, that means you have to fate your opponent 8 times. 8 times to see every single card in their fate deck. Yeah. Okay. So if you're playing as Gaston, there's 1 card. There's 1 card that is the rose. So you're not going to see as opposed to there's plenty of cards in plenty of fate decks where there's multiple copies, but for cards where there's a single copy, you're not going to see it every other turn, right?
Yep, that's for sure.
When there's only 1 card, that means you have to, if it's a bottom card, you have to fate your opponent 8 times to see that 1 card, right? So there 100% is RNG factors that come into play when playing Villainous. I mean, how many times, Jim, have you been playing either Prince John or Queen of Hearts and saying, I need to find that 1 card, and then you see it's at the bottom of the deck.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've played Jafar and I needed to find that 1 card, Scarab that unlocks the Cave of Wonders. Yeah. It's the bottom card of the deck, right?
And then let's talk about Scar. How many times have you played Scar where it's like, oh, I need to find Mufasa, and then you don't find it, and the one time I fate, I'm just like, oh, there's Mufasa.
I'm going to choose the other one.
Let's put him in the discard pile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, I mean, you do have ways to get him out of there.
I think the first time we played Scar, or I played Scar, that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did that. And then there's another card in Scar's villain deck where it lets me pull out Mufasa from discard.
Yeah.
And I was not seeing that all game. And then when I got to the point of reshuffling the fake discard, that's when I drew into it. So, like, if you play Villainous, you can't tell me that RNG and randomness is not a thing in Villainous. Yeah. It 100% is.
And if you do, you're either trolling, you're lying to yourself and us, or you just have never played it.
Right. And again, we're not saying that like RNG or randomness is a bad thing.
Yeah.
All we're saying is it is a thing and you need to accept it.
You have to prepare for it. You have to understand it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's and that's the key to being good at being good at the game.
Yeah.
Right.
Being good at any of the card games.
Any of the card games where randomness is a factor, you have to accept it and understand it and understand how it plays a role. Because let's again take that Scar game. Okay. I had to know both deck lists. Okay. I had to know both deck lists and how I believe the card was Whisper. I think it was Whisper where that was the one that let me get the card of Mufasa from discard. Yeah. So I had to know how many copies of Whisper are in the deck, right? Yeah. How many cards I've gone through. So how many cards are left in the deck? What's my percent chance of drawing it? How many cards are in my hand? Do I have a discard action on board that I can utilize? Okay, well, if that's the one card I need, how many cards are in my hand that I desperately need now, or can I just get rid of? That way I can draw as many cards as possible to maximize my chances of drawing that one card that I can use next turn to play it.
Yeah.
And then hope that Jim moves to another spot where he does not have a fate action and then targets me with the fate action to then shuffle up my entire deck.
Yep.
So all of those things.
I don't know how many times when you're playing Scar, I'm like counting how many cards are left. And I'm just like, okay, I now have to do it in order to get it. And then he's 100%. And then just 100%. Go from there.
And again, this is not a bad thing. Like it's just
a lot of counting cards.
Yes,
really.
yeah. It's what you what you have to think about and strategize when you're playing this game. So like this is just a perfect example of like it's just on our channel where RNG is a factor and how we have to think about how it plays a role in a game, right? So, I mean, I think that's a really, really good good example of how RNG and skill are intertwined and come together in a game.
Yeah.
So, do you have like what's a good experience or story or something that you can think of where RNG and skill really came together and played an integral role in a game or a match?
In just any, any game.
Yeah.
Man. So.
Because there's a lot of games.
Yeah. Just off the top of my head, I have no idea. Like that's what I'd really have to think about.
Yeah.
But one of the best games I would say that really mixes the RNG and skill factor is Card Fight Vanguard.
Oh yeah.
I played that when it first came out, probably like 10 years ago now. I forget how old it is. And
it's a good game.
Yeah. So there's a lot of skill involved in it, but there's also, I would say, equally as much RNG. So
skill and RNG are like right here. I would say
it's like right neck and neck, because a lot of the craziness that happens in these games, when you attack with your main creature, your Vanguard, you do a thing called the drive check. So you can reveal either 1 or 2 cards off the top of your deck. And sometimes those cards can have a trigger effect. So it could be, add 10,000 power to your creature and make it deal an additional damage.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it to where, my opponent's at 4 damage, and then you win once you get your opponent to 6. So if they're at 4 damage and they don't guard it, and they're just like, all right, yeah, it's going to be fine. I don't think he's going to get this critical trigger, which increases your damage. Well, you reveal the crit off the top. Now you're dealing 2 damage rather than the 1 damage. But then there's also a thing when they take damage called the damage check, to where if you get a heal trigger, now you heal one of the damage, and then you continue to add the other cards. So you go from 4 to 6, except then you go back down, and now you're only at 5, and then it saves you.
Yeah, yeah. I think you've told me about that before.
And aside from that, there's also, so earlier we were talking about the resource cards inside the deck.
Yeah.
Well, they have other things called perfect guards inside the deck, to where if you get those in your hand, you can guard with it and then discard a card, which nullifies the attack. Okay. But the thing is, there's only 4 in the entire deck. You can't have any more. So the odds that it can go into the damage, it can go into the soul of the Vanguard, it can, or you just never see the card. The whole thing of, just going into attack and also drive checking to be like, all right, now I get 3 damage on this because I now just hit double crits. And with these triggers, you can only have 16 in the deck. So you can mix and match however you'd like.
What's the... So off topic here a little bit, but you probably know this. So there's a really, really famous tournament in Magic to where
Lightning Helix, Dan.
Is that what it was?
Helix.
Okay, can you tell it? Because it's been a while since I've seen it.
So, all right, I forget how long ago this was. I want to say
a while ago.
Yeah, I'll say like 2000. I don't know exactly. Now I really want to know. So there was a guy.
We're gonna find the video.
Yeah, we have to look it up. There was a guy playing a burn deck, and so when we were talking about the lightning bolt effect, which is deal 3 damage, there is another card called Lightning Helix, which also deals 3 damage, but then heals you 3. So
how much does that cost?
Mana wise?
Yeah,
it's 2 mana.
2, okay.
Yeah, and it's white red.
Okay.
Yeah. So. And then you have all these other cards that also deal 3 damage. So rather than playing like value cards, specifically 1-for-1 cards or things along those lines, you're just looking to do more redundancy rather than individual value of your cards.
Yep.
So you're just like, I have more ways to get this 3 damage off, and that's what I'm really looking to do.
Right.
There was this guy, he had a final turn before he was about to lose the game, and just off the top, he didn't even look at the card. He just took it and slammed it down on the table.
Because they knew at the table, the commentators, everybody knew what his one out was.
Well, one card.
Yeah.
But he had all the redundancy.
The one card. Yeah.
Right. So he needed one card that dealt 3 damage, and he had multiples.
Yeah.
But it was just, if he didn't get this, he lost the game.
He was going to lose.
And so he didn't even look. He was just off the top, slapped it down, and the commentator's like,
crazy.
Oh, Lightning Helix! It's Lightning Helix!
That's one of that is like a perfect example of where RNG and skill collide into just an awesome moment to where like he got so lucky. He got so lucky, right? You know, he got a little bit of luck, right? But also in
like, what were the odds at that point?
Right,
like, how many cards were left? How many total did he have? Did he have like a 40% chance? Well, that's pretty good.
Yes.
But there's actually a thing I just thought about that we didn't talk about.
What?
So we talked about the different formats that there were with sealed and limited.
Yeah.
And we talked about the RNG and opening packs. We didn't talk about the RNG in the draft tournament where you have to open packs and then also have the tournament playing the game itself.
Yeah.
So
that's a good that also goes into the different formats, right?
Yeah.
So we did talk about this on our last episode when we did our Gen Con recap. We did a 2-headed giant draft tournament. It was just
a tournament.
It was a tournament, yeah. 4 teams.
Yeah.
Right.
That was surprising.
So with drafting, if you're unfamiliar with how drafting works, is you open up a box. Each team is dealt 6 packs.
Yeah, for us it was 6 packs.
So 6 packs. You open up the pack. You take the pack of cards, you pick one card from the pack, then you pass the packs.
I think in a normal draft, it's 3 packs because we had 4 teams with 6
4
packs.
Teams. Right. So you pick a card, and then, since we had 2-headed giant, you pick 2 cards.
Yeah.
All right, and then you pass. Then you receive the pack from the other team, and then you choose from them, and then pass. Right.
Yeah. So you don't know what's coming out of these packs.
You don't know what's coming, right? You don't know what's coming in the packs. You don't know what's coming from the pack from the other players, right?
Like what they took.
You know what you open, right? And then you might get that pack back at another point later. And once you get that, you might then have a good idea of, okay, these are the cards that were in this pack, and these cards are not here anymore. Yeah. So now we kind of have a good idea of what our opponent's decks are going to be when we face them. So it's just, that's a whole nother RNG factor in a card game.
And there's even a strategy to drafting to where after you pick your cards, you shuffle up the pack. So that way your opponents don't really know as to what you took. Because they can be like, all right, well, we've been noticing in these packs where, you know, certain cards will be more so towards the front of it. Okay. And like you could have the clusters because inside the pack you have your commons, uncommons, and then the rare slot. So yeah, just if you're doing draft, shuffle up the pack.
Yeah. And honestly, if you're drafting, know the set.
Yeah.
Know the set because like if you're playing
blind.
If you're playing limited and sealed, you have to know what the set is. Because that again, that's how you get good. Like good limited and sealed players, they know what the set is and they know like the best synergies to look for, mostly in the commons and uncommons. Yeah. Because those are
that's the one you're gonna see the most.
That's the one you're gonna see the most. Right, exactly. So yeah. Anything else that you can think about, Jim, about RNG in gaming? Because I mean, I think we covered like a lot. I think we covered a lot of it. You know, we mentioned it. We mentioned it, but didn't really talk about it a lot. But deck building, deck builders, excuse me, deck building games. I mean, just a game that is all about building your deck, right? When you have a stack of 200 cards, like if you watch our last, if you watch a few of our last DC deck building game videos, you just look at the stack. Like it's crazy the number of cards that are there, right? You're never going to see those same cards. Well, I mean, unless you're playing one format to where the goal is to get through the entire stack, you know?
There was one thing I wanted to bring up. So there was another game that came out recently. It kind of died down in the U.S., but it's doing really well overseas. Force of Will.
Okay, yeah.
So this game came out, several years ago. I'm not entirely sure now. And what they ended up doing, this game is a lot like Magic. All your creatures have a mana value. They have power. They have their toughness. They have the abilities. And there's even like the exact same phases as well. But rather than untap, upkeep, it's upkeep, untap, draw for Force of Will, which was really different for me. But then once I learned it, I'm like, I can do really crazy stuff with this setup.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but what they ended up doing was they took the lands out of the deck and put it off to the side. So you had a stones deck on the side.
Okay.
And if you were running monocolor, you pretty much never had to shuffle. But if you were playing two colors, you always have to shuffle your stones list.
Right.
And the only way you would get that is you would have a commander pretty much every single game.
Okay.
And you would tap it to generate a stone every single turn.
Oh, okay.
So rather than being like, oh, I don't have enough lands in hand, I'm getting mana screwed, it's every single turn. And your commander or your J ruler, which was what it was called, you can even activate their abilities to bring them out as a creature and kind of like get rid of rather than wanting a land this turn, I want this creature to come out to then get this effect. So
interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, it was a bit different.
Huh. Yeah, I don't see much of Force of Will here in the US.
Yeah, not anymore.
I know they sold it at Grapple. That was where I first heard of it.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I don't think I've really ever seen it.
Yeah, no, it wasn't terribly big here, and they made a lot of questionable changes. They made a lot of changes to that game. Okay, like a ridiculous amount. Okay, which I think was their downfall.
Okay.
So
yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I think we really touched on a lot of topics within RNG and skill. I mean, it's definitely most prevalent in card gaming. It's still definitely prevalent in other types of board games.
We talk about Carcassonne. I mean, the bag with all the different tiles in it. You don't know what you're taking
Oh man, Catan.
Oh yeah,
Catan. You know, that's definitely a big one too. Yeah.
Whether you're doing the dice or with the cards as well. I personally prefer the cards.
Oh, the card game one.
No, not the card one. Rather than rolling the dice to see the number, they have a deck of cards with numbers on them and like the added effect and how many numbers inside this deck that there are.
So that's less random.
Yeah.
That's less random, yeah. So again, there's actually a good modification if you want more randomness or do you want less randomness?
Yeah.
More randomness, just get a dice.
Yes.
Just get a D6. You know? D6, you know, any dice is the most random thing. You know, unless you get a loaded die.
Yeah, get two D6s. There you go. That's really what you do.
Yep. Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, dice are probably one of the most random things in all of gaming that you can use. So anything that involves dice and cards, those are going to be your two biggest pieces of randomness. And honestly, those are the two biggest used mechanics in all of tabletop gaming.
Yeah.
And for good reason. Like, randomness just has so many uses and keeps things interesting.
Yeah.
You know? What are your thoughts? Like, do you like RNG? You know, what's your thoughts on RNG versus skill? Do you like playing competitive games where RNG is a thing? A lot of people, including myself, have grown to loathe Hearthstone because of the RNG. It used to be like skill here, RNG here, and then it just went.
Well, it's because they put in the discover mechanic. It's like, oh, find this random card that you don't even have in your deck. Or maybe it's a part of some other different kind of deck that you would also have no access to.
Yep. So there's a lot of different mechanics that they just threw in there that they could because it's digital.
Which now Magic's doing on Arena.
Yeah, they are. Yep, I was not the biggest fan of, but, you know, I can't tell you the last time I actually played Arena.
They need to just update MTGO. Like, let's get an HD remastered, shall we? Yeah. That'd be great.
Yeah. So, Sonny, what's your thought? What's your opinion? Do you like RNG? Do you like skill? Like, what's your take? We'd be interested to know. I mean, RNG is always going to be a thing in tabletop. It's never going to go away, and for good reason. Like, we are not saying it should. Definitely not. But what we are saying is whatever game that you're playing, if there's a game that you want to get good at, that you want to master, you need to understand how is RNG being utilized in this game and how can I use it to my advantage. Understand that and use it. All right. That's your first step is just accepting it and understanding it.
Yep.
So start there and then just really figure out like, how do I need to go about thinking about this? Like, it's honestly, it's a puzzle.
Yeah. And another thing is like, there's, you know, you do want to accept it and understand the RNG to it, but you don't want to pretty much consume your mindset to where you're oh, I have a 27% chance of this happening by this turn. It never happens to me. I hate this. Like, what is going on? It's like, yeah, but that's the RNG of it. Like, just because it is that doesn't mean it has to happen.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. 99% is not 100%.
Yeah.
And like,
but it's enough.
Yeah. And when when that 1% happens, accept it and move on.
Yeah.
A lot of people, and I will be the first to tell you, I used to be this way, where when something bad happened, I would it would really consume me and come over me. And that's not healthy. Like, it was never good. And like, that can really put a damper on and destroy relationships. Right. So, you know, honestly can destroy your reputation. Like, if you go to an LGS, if your local game store has events and tournaments and you're the guy who flips tables and gets upset because the dice didn't roll your way, and they never do, well...
Dan's never flipped a table.
I've never flipped a table.
I know, that's what I said.
Okay. I'm like, I don't think I've ever flipped a table. But Jim will be one of the first to tell you that I've calmed down a lot.
Yeah, Dan's gotten a whole lot better.
I've calmed down a lot
since the past.
Yeah, I've really, and I feel like a lot of that has to do with I just play a lot more games now.
I jokingly say that it's because he's getting used to losing because I'm just so good. I'm not. I'm so bad at these games.
Yeah.
RNG just likes me sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes our RNG is a fickle, is a very fickle beast.
Yeah.
Sometimes it likes me, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it likes him, sometimes it doesn't. You know, it's when you just accept it and then just let it go. It makes things a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Like if you lose, it's like, well, I lost, whatever. Yeah. And that's hard for somebody like me who's super competitive, right? But I finally got to the point where I'm like, I'm having a good time, you know. This is good content, you know. So, yeah. So again, we'd be interested to know your thoughts. What's your thoughts on RNG and skill? How you think its usage is? How has RNG made a game for you or broken a game for you? Do you have a time where you top deck your win condition and you won, or did you nat 20 and then you won something, or you know, do you have a story like that? We'd be interested to know. So if you do, send us an email at hobbiesandhappiness@gmail.com. We'd be very interested in reading those stories. I know we haven't really had a lot of chances to get to stories lately. But if you have any good stories, definitely send them in. We would definitely be interested to read those. And with that, Jim, how can people find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, you guys can find me at Jim Morgan, HNH, on Twitter and Instagram.
You can find me at Daniel.G.Campbell on Instagram and Twitter at _DG Campbell. And then you can find Hobbies and Happiness at just about every social media platform. Instagram, it's hobbies.n.happiness. Twitter, Hobbies and Happy. YouTube.com/hobbiesandhappiness. Our website, Hobbies and Happiness. Honestly, if you just go to our website, it's all there, which is www.hobbiesandhappiness.com.
It's also in the link.
Yep, link in the description, all that stuff.
It's also in the link. Yeah, it's in the description. The link's in there.
All right. Well, Jim, thanks for being here.
It is in the link, right?
It is. All right, Jim, thanks for being here. It's a lot of fun, and
it was a good day.
We'll see what next week brings. All right. Thanks everybody, and we'll catch you in the next episode. All right, see you, everybody.
Take care.